She'll be joining us shortly. Hey!
Hey!
Oh my gosh. This is, I think, I just want to say this might be the first time that we're actually like talking for the first time in a really long time.
In a very long time. Yeah,
It's been a
probably
while.
like
It's been a few years.
7 years or something.
What?
Yeah.
But I've been definitely following you and like keeping up with all the amazing work that you've been doing as an educator. So I want to first just introduce, this is a boss human. Like for anybody who's watching who does not already know, I know a lot of folks who are joining know Johora. We go back old school Anytown days. And if you don't know, you will after this Instagram live. Boss human. I feel like we served as Anytown counselors together. You worked for Community Tampa Bay. You were pivotal in a lot of like the volunteer organizing with like we used to do like Anytown like a what is it, like the Anytown advisory board and things like that. So and
I forgot about that. A lot of hats.
There was a lot that happened. So just a little bit about Johora there, but I want to give you an opportunity to just share a little bit more about yourself and introduce yourself to everybody else.
Sure. Hey, everyone. So my name is Johora Warren. Back then in Anytown, it was Johora Ramatar. And I am currently an educator. Yes, Emma, throwback. Hey, Emma. So I'm currently an educator. I have been for the past 6 years, going into my 7th year. I am a mom of 2 humans. Somebody thought that was a good idea. And like right now I'm just focusing on the mom thing, and I'm focusing on my career and I'm actually in grad school right now. So I am getting my master's degree. So a lot
That
of
is
stuff.
a lot. That's multiple full-time jobs all at once. So so I kind of want to start for those who don't know Johora as well, and just both like the level of thoughtfulness, intentionality, but then also the level of humor that you bring into everything that you do. I want to start with a story that you posted involving an interruption to you eating your shrimp hibachi. So could you tell us what prompted this interruption?
Okay, so first let's all agree that fresh hibachi, particularly shrimp hibachi, is the best hibachi. Like freshly cooked, it's like it just got out of the wok or whatever they use to cook it. That's the best hibachi. What I don't like, and what I don't think anybody likes or prefers, reheated shrimp hibachi. And so I had got my meal, was getting ready to eat, and then I got a message about something I had posted. Basically someone trying to use my words against me. So I had posted about how it doesn't matter someone's platform, it doesn't matter how many followers they have, your perspectives don't need to align with theirs. It's okay for you to have differing perspectives. But I was talking about like teaching philosophies or parenting or things like that. I was not talking about opinions that you may have about immigration or about police brutality or things like that. Anything that takes away from the humanity of others and further oppresses people. So someone was like, you contradicted yourself. Like, it's just crazy to me that you posted about people. It's okay to have differing perspectives, but it's not okay for you to have, or if you align with the man, the head honcho in office, the Oompa Loompa in office, if you align with him, that you're racist. And I'm like, but you are. You are though. Like there's nothing to debate with that. So yes, I was interrupted from my hibachi, and I didn't want to just be eating my hibachi all angry. Some of y'all might be like, oh no, you should have just ate your hibachi and dealt with it later. No, because I would have been just like, just right now, I had to address it, which meant that I had to put my hibachi on hold and I had to reheat it. But luckily it wasn't as bad. It wasn't what I preferred, but it wasn't as bad.
It was decent.
Yes, it was
It
decent.
was palatable.
But you know what? Like, you have to address these issues as
Hmm.
they happen. You can't, like, it comes from a place of privilege to be able to pause and decide, oh, I'm not going to address this right now.
Hmm.
So at that point, I had to let people know. I said what I said, and clarify it. So I feel like, especially as you get more followers and things like that, people try you like, oh, well, you said this, but you're not actually doing this. And it's like, no, honey, you're not understanding what I'm saying. So, in a nutshell, that's what that was.
So that is how shrimp hibachi relates to interrupting systemic oppression. So,
Exactly.
so I wanted to start with this because yes, it's a humorous story to some degree, and at the same time, it's very real. And there's a there's a lot of times in a lot of institutions, like non-majority social identities. So majority social identities being white, being male, being
Hmm.
straight, being able-bodied, cis.
Yes.
Um, you know, that's considered the norm, and embracing non-majority identities is seen as political, while
Yes.
expressions of majority identities and culture is seen as apolitical. It's neutral, it's just a default. So
Yes.
I wanted to kind of intro with that because I know that you are a teacher in the education system. What
Hmm.
has been your experience being a teacher in the education system with your identities?
So I'm not gonna lie, there has been pushback, and well, and even before that, there was a lot of me not addressing certain issues. Issues is what we refer to it as, not
Mm,
addressing certain things because I didn't want to be viewed as like that angry Black person. I'm already a passionate speaker and I'm a loud speaker. So automatically people get put on the defense when I start to assert myself or when I start to share what I'm thinking, especially working in a predominantly white district. So at first, I didn't say things. And I have some, white colleagues who would be like, well, aren't you upset about this? And I'm like, yeah, but I have to like reserve myself for
mm,
like the real hot button issues. Otherwise, I'm viewed as the one that's like, oh, she's always talking about race, or oh, she's always, this is something she cares about. This is something she's always posting about, things like that. And then it just got to the point where I was tired of tone policing myself.
mm,
And I was tired of just going along with things that I knew wasn't okay. So I was like, okay, you're going to hear it. And I just happen to be a person of color that you're going to hear it from because nobody else is talking.
mm,
Nobody else is saying this. And ultimately, as an educator, I want to do what's best for kids. So, yes, there has been pushback from parents who don't have the same views as I do. But I always tie it into, well, I'm trying to prepare our children, trying to prepare all these children for the global society that they are going to encounter. And it's not okay for them not to understand that race is a thing. We are not colorblind.
mm.
And there are a bunch of different aspects. Like, I want children to understand that there is white supremacy because they're not too young to experience it, and they're not too young to learn about it.
Mm.
So, yes, there has been pushback. I'm not going to lie and say that there hasn't. I have had to kind of, say things with my chest a little bit like, okay, this is what you think. And if you feel that way, I mean, your child doesn't have to be in my classroom. But this is how I'm going to run things in my classroom. And I also let them, or I have admin on my side.
Mm.
I will say that. I have admin on my side.
I think it's that's like a key point, like what you're saying of like having, because like it is like it could be potentially like for you like it's a risk, like what you
Yes.
said of like of speaking up, and then whether it's just in terms of perception and other people's perceptions, and like the sense of like, well, we are now going to
Yes.
discount your voice because nobody else has your back, and so it's
Yes.
easier to just kind of be with like you're alone.
Yes, exactly. Especially the
What?
whole not having your back thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to be the only one that says something. Um, sometimes you're going to be the one that stands alone in these issues. But the thing is, a Joe hack for you. What you got to do is kind of start talking to your colleagues, kind of try and feel who could be on your side and who could not be. And then you start mobilizing them. So it's not just you that feels that way. Because I guarantee there is somebody else in the building, even if they may not have said anything yet, they just haven't been empowered to say anything yet. But yeah, like we have a little group text.
Woo!
We have our little school text, like, and it's like, this is how we're going to be co-conspirators in our school and in our community. So mobilize. And I just sent a bunch of text messages like, hey, I'm pretty sure we all have the same views on this. How are we going to dismantle racism in the classroom? They're like, oh yeah, so we send each other newspaper articles and petitions and things like that. So I have a bunch of predominantly white people on my side, and also my admin on my side. So if a parent pushes back and they're like, well, I'm going to go to your principal, go ahead. She's going to say the same exact thing that I'm saying. So
I feel like we could do a whole nother Instagram live just talking about political or like activist organizing as an educator within the education system.
Get you a group chat.
I feel like that's a legit thing because, like that is something that, in thinking about, like, this is totally crossover into a lot of other spaces where you're not supposed to talk about certain things in certain spaces. And then how do we break some of that stigma because it's being politicized by the people who make it political. It's not like my identity, your identity, kids' identities. These are only political because of power systems.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
So I think like that's maybe we can have you back to talk about organizing in the workplace.
Organizing in the workplace.
That would be an awesome conversation.
We know that teachers are already held to a higher standard, like even higher standards than, say, police officers or things like that. Like anything that we do is so heavily scrutinized, and we don't get like the benefit of the doubt. We don't get like that unconditional positive regard. It's constantly, oh, well, this is an educator and she said such and such and such about President Trump. I did. Anything I post on my page or anything I post on my, like on social media, that's something that I will absolutely say in front of a parent, or maybe not in the way that I said it, but I will say it, or the message stands. You know what I'm saying? So I don't post things that I'm not willing to stand in front of if I get pulled into the office or something like that.
What have been kind of and I know like you might not be able to be specific, like we want to respect confidentiality of folks and things like that, and like students confidentiality as well, but what have been some of the biggest challenges that you have encountered that kind of pop into your head as like, ooh, that was a rough one?
So I would say, because you're working with children, sometimes there's perception of what happened in the classroom. Hi, Jordy. What happened in the classroom differs from what they share with their families. So that has been like some of the biggest things. So for example, we were talking about Christopher Columbus in the classroom, and we were having like a conversation about how he's basically a trash person, right? And one of the students was sharing about how, he has murdered and he has raped and things like that. And I validated that, like, yes, you're absolutely right. He has. So then I got an email about, well, why are you talking about rape in the classroom? That's not what happened. Let me explain to you what happened. So not being afraid to not back down, especially when you know that you were doing the right thing for students, and validating them. So I don't believe in not telling students the truth or glossing over it and just not addressing things. So that was something that they spoke about. And in 5th grade, particularly, we're going to talk about human growth and development. They're going to talk about sexual reproduction. So in that, they need to learn about what consent is
Mm.
And so it kind of fit into talking about how Christopher Columbus did not obtain consent when he,
Ooh. Mm.
raped these indigenous people. So it's all
Mm.
about really standing your ground. And I mean, I am not in a position where I can't have my job. So I don't want it to be like, oh, she doesn't care about losing her job. Uh, I don't, but I do. Like, of course, I need the money. Like, I have two little babies. Yeah, I need the money. My two broke little friends. But it's also, I am going to stand my ground. And usually, when you stand your ground and then attach it back to what's best for students and
Mm.
how I have their best interests in mind, for them to be successful when they leave my classroom, then usually it's okay. Like, so for that particular like email, for example, I didn't get an email back because I mean, what can you say about that? Like,
Mm.
well, no, don't say it in front of my child. Like, okay, but we're just going to talk about it in a few months when we talk about human growth and development. You know what I mean? So you can opt out of that. That's within your right. My two broke little best friends. Yeah. So yeah, I understand the risk of not wanting to say something, especially if you're a person of color, um, because you could, be reprimanded or lose your job or things like that. Like, I completely, completely understand it. But then I just kind of counter it and ask, well, if you are in a workspace where you could lose your job for telling the truth and you can lose your job for trying to teach your students to be the best little human beings that they can be, then maybe that's not the workspace for you. Maybe you need to look at your other options, like other schools, because teaching jobs there's a lot of teaching jobs. So
Mm. So I think like this comes back to kind of like what you were saying at the beginning of like initially there was kind of that sense of like there was a little bit of like, okay, like let me not be as
yes,
vocal, like
yes.
like you were feeling things out and you were trying to find like your allies and things like that. And so I'm kind of curious. I feel like we can still definitely, reserve another time for like, all right, organizing in your workplace and like have a full on conversation there. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, let's stay on topic. I
yeah,
can't even remember what we're supposed to talk
but
about.
but even with that, just like just kind of one final piece in regards to that, how have you like what are some of the different ways? Because I think you've already mentioned some of the ways, like even talking about like speaking I saw in the comments somebody said speaking truth to power in terms of
Yes.
looking at like history and not sugarcoating, not whitewashing it. So like both in the classroom, but then also with your work with other teachers and educators and kind of mobilizing and working together in that sense, what has been sort of like your process or how have you carved out space for non-majority identities within both the classroom as as you gave kind of an example there, but then also within your little piece of the education system?
Okay, so that's a good question. One of the things is really being critical about the curriculum that I'm
Mm.
teaching with my so two of the books that they had us reading with fifth graders were so dry and unseasoned and stale, and I was like, I can't. It just, first of all, there wasn't anything really important happening in those books, and the main characters were little white boys, and it's like, okay, great, we can, whatever type of standards you wanted to reach, you can still reach those standards, but including authentic and
Mm.
real text, and relevant text to students. So I basically kind of talked to my, like, you kind of put some feelers out there. So with my coworkers, particularly because I was teaching ELA, I said, hey, what y'all think about United Spade Foot Toes? Oh, I hate that book. Great! I hate it too. I was thinking we supplement it with this, which has a protagonist of a little black girl, and we can also reach the same standards because they wanted us to talk about like environmental stuff or whatever. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like this has a lot about ecosystems and things like that, and plus it has a black protagonist, or oh, this is about a little Korean girl, blah blah blah, or this is about a little black boy, blah blah blah. So we were really intentional about looking at our curriculum through a critical lens and saying like, it's okay to supplement it. And then we went to our principal with, listen, the books that we have right now are dry, unseasoned, and stale. And I'm pretty sure I used those words, but I might have said these books aren't really representative of the students that we have. So these books aren't really representative of the students that we have. So we wanted to know if we could supplement this book and use this book that is more inclusive. And here we actually have this copy for you if you would like to read it right now. And so like my principal, we have pushed so many books in front of her, and she has gracefully read it when she, really doesn't have to, and just kind of taken our word for it. Hey girl, taken our word for it. And we are the masters of our craft. And thank you. And we know what's best for our students. We know what our students like. We know what will resonate with our students because we're on the front lines. We are the ones that are interacting with them every day. So not being afraid to steer away from the curriculum, like the stale curriculum that they put in front of you, and supplementing it with rich texts that allow you to talk about like a bunch of different things with your students. So that was a process. It was okay, so let's find a book that is about space but has a person of color for the protagonist. And it's like sometimes you have to really do some deep research because there's not a lot of things. So then there's not a lot of books, I should say. But it might be like finding this one book from this local author about something that's really, really good, and it has like what fits the needs of your standards. So we've done that, like talk to our principal about like, hey, always tie it to what's best for students, because what are they going to say? No, I don't want what's best for kids. If they do, like, you need a new principal. Like, that's not good. So yes, doing that's been part of our process. Really seeing where there's gaps in the curriculum as well. Have you been using different types of media to socially educate? Yes. Are you talking about like technology? Because I mean, like my Instagram, my students they're in 5th grade, so they're going to find my page regardless of how many different kind of like privacy settings I put on it. But yeah, so I reach out to them in that way. And also we supplement by using picture books as well. So having inclusive picture books, because there are a lot more picture books than there are novels.
I'm saying like podcasts and TV shows like Patriot Act, etc.
I haven't got to that point yet in my teaching. It's more so been on the texts that I have, but that's not something that I rule out. That is absolutely something. And then you can even have your students create their own podcast about the issues. Boom, like there you go. So maybe letting them hear one of these relevant podcasts, and then to give them agency and to have them be, little activists of their own. What is an issue that you feel is pertinent to your life or pertinent to the world as we know it right now? Let's do a podcast assignment on it. Go for it.
I love it. I love how, and this is like, this kind of just goes to the fact that it's like, what's best for students. Agency is so important. And like the idea of, even as you're talking right now, it's like, I haven't ruled it out. I haven't done that yet. And at the same time, I haven't ruled that out. And it's a much more like, it's a very collaborative, exploratory, I don't know. You
shouldn't be doing the same thing with your students every year, because your students are changing and their needs are changing. And then like our global society is changing. So when I enter the classroom this year, it's going to look very different than from last year, because there weren't as many things. Yes, let's make a podcast. Absolutely. But when I get into the classroom, I'm going to be sensitive to like the racial trauma that a lot of our students have faced, including myself. I faced a lot of racial trauma in the past few months. So being sensitive to that and kind of like showing students that now more than ever, we need to have anti-racist and anti-bias instruction in the classroom.
I'm gonna let's see, how can we advocate for students outside of being parents, such as people not in education?
Mm,
Can I come back to this question because I definitely want to get to this because there is so much
yes.
more. I think we want to kind of close with that. That's like a really really good question about like how we can all support educators and students. Um, but like kind of speaking to that piece of advocacy and like what you were
Hmm.
just saying of going back into the classroom, we're finding out that we're finding that in general educators have to advocate for themselves and for their students a lot,
Yes.
and are being put in that position again with the announcement from the Florida governor ordering schools to reopen 5 days a week, and it's
Hmm.
without yes. So um, I kind of want to start just kind of getting into that issue first before
Yeah.
we get into talking a little bit more about the advocacy piece of things.
Okay.
What are your concerns as a teacher and as a parent to schools reopening?
To put it quite frankly, like I don't want to die.
Mm,
Like I don't think any teacher wants to die, and that's a very real fear that a lot of us have is that okay, maybe I might be okay, but what if I give this to my children and my children's father is also in education as well. So
mm,
he's exposed to a bunch of students. I'm exposed to a bunch of students. What if I pass that on to my children, who pass that on to my mother, who is the last parent that I have and who watches my children on a daily basis. So it's like trying to make those very, thank you, make those very real, like getting your affairs in order. There are so many teachers, Masa, around the country that are looking at their wills. They're looking at their
mm,
wills going into this school year because they are being asked to be on the front lines during a global pandemic. People are dying. And there are people that like they're reassessing their life insurance to make sure their kids are okay, especially when you have both parents that are in education.
mm,
Um, so yeah, it's very scary, and you're made to feel bad about not wanting to return to the classroom so quickly because you're a teacher. That's what you're supposed to
mm,
do. Like you're supposed to protect your kids. You're supposed to be there for your kids. You're supposed to show up for your kids. And it's like, yeah, I can't show up for my kids if I die.
mm,
I can't show up for them. Are you going to have trauma counselors for in the inevitable fact that one of these teachers, maybe not even older, maybe like a teacher my age, I'm 30, um, dies, and then you have to like kind of prepare your students for that. What if one of our immunocompromised students die? Like it's
mm,
it's it's so real, and I love my job, but Florida, our cases have reached record numbers,
mm,
and we're allowed to feel scared without being thought of as, yeah, we barely have guidance counselors. We're allowed to be scared without being viewed as selfish or not
mm,
caring about their job or not caring about the kids or not caring about the parents who have no other choice but to put their kids in school.
mm,
So I just honestly feel that it's not for teachers to be the ones that are trying to be the like to bolster the economy or the ones that are we're being asked to once again step in the gap for a racist capitalist society that doesn't respect us. Yes, bestie. Yes, exactly. Um, so it's like, hey, we don't respect you. We don't pay you for what you're worth. By the way, um, teach these kids, and you may get sick. They are having people sign waivers of, hey, by the way, you put your kids in this school or in this program, they might die. They might get COVID. So you're signing off on the fact that they might get COVID, and if you don't sign this, well, you don't have a place for your child.
mm.
These are very real things that are happening, and it's so scary, and it just continually shows the disregard for educators as professionals.
Hmm. I think
Did I answer the question?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Okay.
no, no, no. Yes, and I think that's the thing is like in a sense that question. That's pretty much like you said. To be frank, it's I don't want to die, and I don't want kids to die.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, but exactly what you said of the pieces around like the fact. I think like also viscerally, like I think we begin to get sort of numb to certain things. Like we just hear over and over again, oh, COVID, COVID,
Mm-hmm.
COVID, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
take seriously, or politicians don't take seriously. Like people are completely changing. Like I think even the thing that I didn't even think about was what you just said about like writing and visiting wills
Yes.
as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like I haven't thought about that. You
Yeah.
know, as a younger adult, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about my end of life affairs, and the fact that
Yes.
teachers are being put into that situation is
Yes.
unconscionable.
And it's not just, a few. Many
Mm-hmm.
of us have openly talked about, like, oh, I need to, like, my will is written on a napkin right now. Like, I
Mm,
need to actually, like, consult a lawyer about this, or I need to go through the steps to have a life insurance policy that will make sure my kids are set,
mm-hmm.
And I just don't think that's fair to ask of
Yeah,
teachers, of
and
educators, or anybody in the school field.
absolutely. And then Set says all of this after teachers have continuously been defunded over the years as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, coming back to what your point too of okay, with no plan, without a plan, without protections in place, what happens? What is the trauma that is going to be exponentially impacting students
Yes. Mm-hmm.
when there is an inevitable death,
Right.
either of their teacher, somebody else in their school, a classmate.
Right.
Um, and I see another comment here, Mrs. Mrs. Hibbs, Mr.
Yes.
Shits, yes, but it's only 0.02% of kids who will die. It's only almost 15,000 kids. Mm, for
Betsy,
Betsy.
devoid of sense.
Mm. So these are all things that definitely put into context, like the impact
Mm-hmm.
of schools reopening.
Mm-hmm.
I think this morning I saw some coverage of, at least in Pinellas County, I think potentially some
Mm-hmm.
protests happening at school board
Yes. Mm-hmm.
office. Um, I wanted you to speak a little bit more to. I saw a few like this hashtag on your stories and on your
Yes.
pages in regards to what you said too of this idea of treating teachers as expendables, saying like this
Mm-hmm.
expectation of teachers, you have to be in service to kids, and therefore, you know, so and
Whatever
so
that
like
comes with. So
whatever the
instead of
cost. Yeah.
having like gun control, we expect teachers to, well, I mean, you're a teacher, you're supposed to shield children with your bodies, like things like that. And then now it's okay, well, these kids need to learn. So you need to be the one that's in front of the classroom, regardless of if you might die, which is a very
Mm-hmm.
high possibility, or if one of your students might die. So my friend Liz, teaching with a side of glitter, in case you want to follow her, she messaged me. She's like, I feel like my voice isn't being heard, and I feel like this is such a scary time. What about doing like some type of social media hashtag campaign so that educators and teachers are given a voice? So then we were thinking about like what might be a good hashtag, and then we came along with the hashtag educators are not martyrs. And we created a template so that people are, or educators are able to share like their thoughts on returning for the school year, and just their just given a platform to share their voices, because people aren't asking us what we think.
Mm.
They're not asking us. So we wanted to kind of give them the opportunity to share what they think. And yeah, we've had some really good responses. And I say good, but some really sad responses too. And I just think that it's important for people to see the humanity in us, because we're not often viewed as just humans. We're viewed as superheroes, or we're viewed as like blah 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 or whatever. We're not given like that humanity piece.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So the hashtag is educators are not martyrs, and this is on Instagram. Is it on Twitter too? Is this on
Yes.
where? Okay.
Yes. So I'm not as Twitter savvy, but it is on Twitter as well. And yeah, just if you're an educator, or even if you are an ally of educators, if you support educators, like share your thoughts using that hashtag educators are not martyrs. Because it's scary. Like I have been sick the past 4 days solely from the stress of thinking about returning into the classroom, and not even for myself, but for my children and for my mom. Yeah, it's scary. So we
Mm,
wanted teachers to feel like they had a voice when historically we are not given a voice.
mm,
We aren't included in these conversations. We're not included in these policies. We're not included in, any of these things. And I mean, we can storm the board, the school board or the Capitol all day long, but we're still not being included in those
mm.
conversations. So we just wanted to provide teachers with the opportunity to share. It's something.
Yeah. So I think this is a good kind of a way to tie back into the question earlier of like,
Yes.
how can we support students' safety, physical and emotional health, but then also teachers and educators? How do we as non-educators support y'all?
Okay. So a little kind of another Joe hack. Okay.
Okay.
School boards and like governors and things like that, they are more inclined to listen to parents. They are more
Mm,
inclined to listening to like the parents, because I mean their kids are the ones that are ultimately being affected. So parents, like, write those letters, contact the news, get on Twitter, hold these people accountable. Shouldn't have to pick between their paycheck and their health, exactly. Hold these people
absolutely.
accountable because they listen to you more than they listen to us. It's kind of like, oh, it's an educator, like this is what they signed up for, blah blah blah. But if I'm a parent and my child is at risk, um they're more inclined to listen to you because they feel like you have a greater stake in things. So I would say, like, parents, kind of show your support of teachers. And I know that's difficult, especially for those parents who have no other choice but to put their children in school. But
Mm,
I really think that that's when we need to mobilize and we need to create a village of safety for like those working parents who have to go back to work and need somebody to like to watch their children, so to speak. So reaching out to neighbors and other safe, trusted adults, that would be helpful. To just let our governor see the severity of COVID and to see the severity of who it's going to impact. Because I know for a fact I cannot handle if a child in my classroom dies. I
mhm,
will not be able to go back to work. I will not be
mm.
able to go back to work if one of my colleagues dies. I just mentally, I know I wouldn't be able to handle it. And so getting parents to kind of not view teachers as the enemy
Mhm.
and kind of work with us, because we want what's best for your child. We don't want to just sit at home eating bonbons. Do people eat bonbons? Where do you get bonbons from?
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Like, we're not at home eating bonbons trying to kick our feet up. Like, we want to be around our students. We love our students. We love our jobs, but it's just not fair to ask us to put ourselves, our own families at risk, and your child at risk too.
Mhm.
So we just need parents to mobilize, go to those city hall
Yeah,
council meetings, go to the
I saw
board
that comment.
meetings, because a lot of things are being censored. Like, there are some board meetings that won't talk to they won't speak about any other thing that's not on the agenda. So it's like you're not even having that opportunity to share. So shake some tables, go on Twitter, contact the newspaper, contact the news, things like that. Because closed mouths don't get fed and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So
Hmm. I
I'm a
see,
fan.
speaking to the power of parents speaking up, and I see from um, Matea Ashley. I'm a single mother, and my oldest is in second, and my district is doing traditional learning, and he attends my school, and I have a 2-year-old that now has to return back to daycare. So definitely, these are things that parents are dealing with, just as sort of that same situation of teachers who are also parents and are juggling both of those things as well.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard for teachers who are also parents, especially when you have like really little ones and when you have ones that are school age too.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. I
I
feel for
think
you.
I think one of the things I also heard was like even with some other states are trying to do something at least a little bit different, where it's like, okay, maybe it's like reduced hours and like doing some kind of what is it, staggered attendance and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But then
Mm-hmm.
even with that, there still are problems with, all right, like parents and teachers who are parents, if their child has this schedule and then they have this
Yes.
schedule, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
coordinating all of that. Like this is a very massive undertaking,
It is.
and it requires and it's being left in sort of put in the laps of educators to try to figure this all out and
Yes.
navigate everything all at once, and that is something that we're seeing a
And
lot of all across the country.
if we had someone competent in office, this is something I feel like that could have been addressed like on that systemic level. Because the
Mm-hmm.
problem is you have check and say, hey, girl. The problem is that we have these parents that are forced to go back to work and have nowhere else for their children to go to. When then it becomes you working all day long. Exactly. So just, I don't know, it's not up to us to solve these problems. Like,
That's not what you get paid for.
no, that's not what we get paid
your job.
for. Like, I didn't sign up to be a human shield. I did not sign up to possibly get COVID. You know what I mean? Like, come on. So, yeah.
I see another comment earlier. I care for my elderly mom, and I'm concerned of bringing anything home. So again, like, even if you're not a parent, if you're still a caretaker, again, all of these are intersecting. I know as somebody who was a caretaker for my parent at one point, like that's a lot of stress in and of itself, and then again having to navigate all of these different things because leadership is not doing their part to protect us.
Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen,
Go ahead.
Have you seen any good ideas or good suggestions to maybe make in-person learning an option? I haven't yet, especially because, I didn't sign up for it. Yeah, exactly. I am in Florida and our cases just keep rising. So I have been mulling over, I've been getting sick over trying to figure out a way to still be there for your students, to still be there for the parents of those students. But so I don't have that answer yet, but it is something I'm thinking about. If anyone in the comments has an answer for that, would love to hear it.
And I think this comes back to this piece of it shouldn't, and again, like, yes, it's falling into the laps of educators and community members, and it shouldn't, right? This is the job of people who are elected officials, who are running governments, to be able to make these decisions and think through these things. That is their job as leaders.
Right.
And when those responsibilities are being then delegated without consent to educators and parents and the rest of the community, it shouldn't be the case, and yet at the same time, here we are having this conversation. So thank you, Johora, and this is not your job. I see in here, have somebody that's been an educator in the position of the U.S. Secretary of Education. Yes, that would be
and
fantastic.
in that order.
Yes.
And in that order, all of that. Yes.
Literally above our pay grade. Yes, thank you. So the comments are on fire, y'all. We're just reading through the comments at this point. Yes.
Even if we did go in, it becomes students going to school in a jail. Yeah. Will that even be good for them?
Yeah, with the level of precautions and restrictions that are necessary in order to guarantee safety. Absolutely. Really good point there.
Guarantee safety.
The
dancer teacher.
as we're kind of wrapping up this conversation, and thinking about,
Oh,
so I think
I have one thing.
yeah,
My
yeah,
bad, because mom brain, I will forget it. I
yes,
just feel like we're constantly being asked a lot of
mm,
things. There's so many asks, and when do the asks stop? I feel like they're never
mm,
going to stop. So that's something that like I felt in my heart to share, and that's also why we have that educators are not martyrs
mm,
hashtag, because it's more and more, and we already give so much of our time and our energy and our heart, and it's never enough. It's never enough. It's all
mm,
above our pay grade, and we do it
mm.
because of the goodness of our hearts, but we shouldn't have to.
So I think this kind of goes in line with, um, thank you for taking the time to answer the questions that I'm asking you. I know there's a different context for the asking of you versus asking for your voice.
Yes.
And at the same time, um, like this is a lot also to engage in this conversation while dealing with all of this and the stresses involved with this. I
Yes.
see some other comments on here. I just want to point out there's a lot of conversations around mental health, learning new curricula, and like doing all the regular functions of educators at the same time, lack of mental health care, and again, thinking to that point of with trauma and
Mm-hmm.
health concerns, death, like those are things that are issues. I see kind of another comment here about, are there any protest plan or events plan that we could attend or support, or anything that we can donate to? Do you know of anything, as we're kind of thinking about additional ways to support educators and students?
Mm-hmm.
What are some additional actions, apart from parents speaking up? Like, what else can we do you think?
So I would really look into Facebook. There are a lot of different Facebook groups depending upon the district of like, oh, like safer options for returning to school, or different things like that. So there's a lot of like parent groups and parent teacher groups that are trying to mobilize. Also, checking with your district and finding when their school board meetings are and showing up, because a lot of them expect us not to show up. They make it very inconvenient for us to show up, like at inconvenient
Mm,
times or inconvenient like days of the week or things like that. I know like our district office is way out there, far away. So it's like, oh, I really don't want to go to the boonies for a meeting, but like carpooling together, and just finding out when your board meetings are. And I know that I think DeSantis has some like meetings around the state too, attending those as well.
okay, so
Hey, Sassy
definitely,
Morning.
we can, as a community, look for those events and like
Yes.
support, because again, it doesn't fall to the same people to always show up at the same things over and over again. We need to spread some of that. Sam, is, I think this is connecting to somebody else's comment around like even if we had in-person learning, like it feels almost like jail, right? Like
Yes.
this right. And Sam says, remembering also that safety is often an excuse to authorize disciplinary action, which for kids of color often results in physical violence and or school to prison pipeline.
Yes. Snaps and Z formation, Sam. Precisely, precisely. So we always say that we care about students and their needs, but we really don't. It's all about what's best for, politics and the political reasons behind it all. So
Hmm.
for sure.
Bars,
Bars.
bars. Yo,
Exactly.
Johora, I just have to say, the chat is on fire. Your crew is showing up and showing
Yeah,
out.
I was like, hey guys. I told them like 15 minutes before, like, hey, I'll be on live if you want to go.
um, so I think it's about power. Yes, say it loud.
Yes.
This is amazing. So I think I definitely feel like I want to have another conversation with you, because
Yeah.
especially your like this shows your teacher educator organizing is like I feel like we've got some things to learn from this. So I feel like this could be a whole nother conversation around like
Yeah.
organizing in the workplace, organizing, yeah, because I see so much energy here. As we wrap up, um, if you have any other thoughts on broader institutional and cultural changes, beyond this moment. So yes, we're thinking specifically about COVID and reopening and going back to school, and how short-sighted, how callous that is. But even beyond this moment, and with this hanging over us, what would help interrupt threats to the emotional and the physical safety of and the health of both students and teachers in the education system as we think about systemic issues? Like, because I think this kind of comes back to what Sam pointed out of, even in terms of discipline, right? How the way that we look at different rules, it
So
prioritizes some over others.
it is, yes, it's multifaceted because for the past few weeks, I've been zeroed in on anti-bias and anti-racist instruction in the classroom because of everything that we're seeing. And now it's also, okay, now I'm just trying to protect the health and safety of all the kids. So making sure that we are, like, first and foremost, right now, we need to focus on the lives of our students and the lives of our teachers, because we can't talk about the anti-bias and anti-racist education and instructional practices if they did. Like, we can't talk about that. So focusing right now on talking to teachers and how can we make online teaching work. How can we establish those? I mean, because some of us are pros now at it because we had to do it for the past few months. So there are so many different things that we can do to kind of support students in that. And also kind of mobilizing and like forming maybe some groups so that parents who have to go to work are able to have like their child covered. Because like I will take in, you know, less than 10 kids, like to get so that they are able to get what they need, especially if their parent isn't able to watch them. And I think more people need to do that. Like, we need to be creating villages and stop being islands. We really need to create these villages and like show everyone we're here for each other. And part of us being here for each other might be, okay, hey, I'll take the kids on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that our students are able to, you know, have the access to the technology. And then you take the kids on Tuesdays and Thursdays or whenever you can, so that we can all kind of make this work at least for the next few months until that imminent threat is reduced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm seeing folks in the comments, both to just saying she is the bomb, all the things. It all ties into lives of kids, teachers, and families during 2 pandemics. Yes, and this community, true community, working together and finding creative ways of relying on each other and looking to each other when clearly those who are supposed to be leading us are not doing a very good job of looking out for us.
Yeah, like I just feel like we need to truly go like old school, like, hey, so and so up the street, she's working 3 jobs, she has 2 kids, she isn't able to watch her kids do this online learning. And then connecting her with the work from home mom or the stay at home mom or dad who is able to like, I guess like building those bridges and kind of showing like, hey, like this is a safe person, this is a safe adult, a trusted adult, and kind of making those connections and building those communities so that we're all in it together. Several teachers and I plan on going to several of the apartments and speaking to the managers. Yes! Learning this is D, absolutely. So our kiddos have access and accountability. Because there was something, Masa, that I wanted to talk about. Literally takes a village. I'm happy to be part of that village. Because online learning, there is that level of privilege and there is that level of access, especially with like if we're doing like these video calls, if we're doing like these recorded lessons, that requires a higher bandwidth. So making sure that our students have access to those things, like, you know, Mrs. McHenry up the block, she rich, and she got the best internet. So Miss McHenry, like, can we all like can you have 5 kids come over to your house, like, so that they can, you know, so. And that idea came to me right in March when we had to transition to that online learning, and the cases were substantially lower, by the way. And one of my students, she's a teacher's kid. So basically she invited her two neighbors who were also in our class, and they had school together, and they just like worked through everything together and things like that. And it's like, is it ideal? No, I mean, ideal would be us being back in the classroom. Let me get that Wi-Fi password. Exactly. Make sure your Wi-Fi is unlocked. Help the community.
You know what? I'm thinking about doing that now that you mentioned it.
Yes. Unlock your Wi-Fi password. Yes. That is so good. I gotta make a graphic about that. Yes.
Set up outside Miss McHenry's house. She's rich. That's why.
She's rich. She got that good Wi-Fi. I sat in my parking lot with kids in my apartment complex to support them while teaching. Boom, there it is. Like, we are happy to go above and beyond because we naturally already do. I think that's kind of on brand with being a teacher, but this is a community effort. Like, we all need to be able, maybe like some of the education students can like open up, like, you know, like the apartment clubhouse, and it's like, hey, I'm going to take 5 kids, you know, and helping, just greatly reducing the threat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
we pulling up to Miss McHenry house.
Yeah. And I think like this is the thing is this is all kind of part and parcel of like thinking about the way that I think about systemic change is definitely from like first checking ourselves, then checking our relationships and having cross-cultural dialogue with each other, understanding one another, building community, building culture, and those cultures are influence institutions. And when we start changing those institutions from there, we have that foundation with community. Then we can start to change systemic oppression. So
yes.
I think like what you're saying all fits in. Like, yes, it shouldn't have to be falling to educators, falling to communities to try to find a way to do the job of leaders. And at the same time, this is part of that systemic change to build that foundation.
It looks like we got right now. So let's mobilize people.
I am so glad though that you are doing the work. I want to, before we get kicked off of our Instagram Live, I want to have you do just kind of, where can people find you? Where can people hear from you? Let's plug some of the things that you're on. I see Teacher Talk Live is a thing.
Okay, so you can follow me at That's So Johorable, because my name's Johora, so That's So Johorable. I don't have very many followers, so if you message me, I can message back. That's part of having like such a nice small platform. Also, I will be speaking again on a Teacher Talk Live with Call Me Shivy. Call me and then SHIVY. That will be tomorrow night at 8. And I just want to let y'all know, like, full disclosure, I'm real. I say whatever goes to my head. So it really seems like I don't got much sense, but I'm educated though, I promise.
You got
so
so much sense that it makes it sound like for other people, it's like, what? She said that, and it's like, oh, well, it's because most people don't say that. Most people don't speak sense. So so I'm so glad. Thank you so much for being on this Instagram Live with us, and it's so good to talk to you. So it's been a while, and I'm honored.
Yes, get your snacks, get your wine. I might have a Teacher Talk Live cocktail. Who knows? Oh, that's a good idea. Who knows?
So thanks, Johora. So with that, Ashley, our AmeriCorps Vista for this summer, is posting in the comments our survey for creating space. Please, if you watched this, go ahead and fill it out. It's only like 2 or 3 minutes long, just to give us some feedback.
Fill it out,
love to Johora. Give us feedback, tell us what you want to hear, and we will be back with some more creating space and programming. All right?
Yay!
Bye, y'all. Hey.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.